Are people who leave the religion of Jehovah's Witnesses, turn around and speak out as activists, just bitter like they're accused of by the Watchtower apologists? Let's get into it. Jehovah's Witnesses practice a strict form of shunning, where once you leave the religion, especially if you turn around and speak out about it, you will be completely shunned by your former friends and family who are still in the religion. Now, this might come as a great surprise to you, but people are not happy to be shunned by their former friends and family for speaking the truth against a terrible religion that they came out of. And so it is true that at least for a time, people often become bitter. But what does it mean to be bitter? Well, if you look it up on Google, it defines bitterness as being angry, hurt, or resentful because of one's bad experiences or a sense of unjust treatment. So is it wrong to be bitter after you leave the religion? I don't think so. I think it makes perfect sense why you would feel angry, hurt, or resentful because you're being shunned by your friends and family just because you no longer want to be part of the religion, and especially if you say something about it because of their harmful and terrible practices. But the truth is, you don't even have to talk about it. You can just formally disassociate. You could go away quietly and you will still be shunned by your friends and family. And yeah, that is a very just cause for feeling bitter towards the religion. However, that said, while it's understandable to feel bitter when you're being shunned by your entire family for leaving the religion, personal growth and newfound freedoms can definitely lead to a happier life outside of the religion. So while the apologists are claiming that we're bitter just because they can't defend against the things that we're saying, and they have to come up with some argument to make it sound like, oh, we just have some personal problem, and it's not really that the religion is awful and terrible towards people. No. It's just you. You're just bitter. Well, and the truth is, I'm actually not bitter because I'm not angry, hurt, or resentful anymore. Of course I was at first. That's a natural response to finding out that the religion that you grew up in is absolute BS and that it's run by a bunch of old men who have objectives that have nothing to do with the Bible and that have nothing to do with Jesus and have nothing to do with you as an individual. It's a natural response to be bitter about that. So let's talk a little bit about bitterness and its psychological impacts. First of all, you lose your community and your support system when you leave Jehovah's Witnesses. And that naturally would make you bitter. It causes at minimum a strain and often a complete loss of family association, which naturally would make you bitter. And there's a massive emotional toll of being seen as an outcast by the group that used to be your entire social network, because Jehovah's Witnesses are strongly encouraged not to have friends outside of the religion because those worldly people are not safe and you can't trust them and they're from the devil, or even if they don't know it, they're indirectly serving the devil, so you shouldn't get too close to them because you're playing with fire if you do. So you were in this religion, you believed this for probably most of your life because you were born in, and then you find out it's all not true at all, and you find out about all the flip-flopping doctrines, you find about all the crime that the Watchtower has hidden, crimes against children, the worst kind of crimes. You find out about their investments in companies like Philip Morris and Lockheed Martin, cigarettes and war machines, two things that one they'll shun you for and the other they claim they're completely against. You find out about this stuff. You see the governing body caught on film Tight Pants Tony Morris buying massive quantities of alcohol on Sunday when he should be at the meeting. You hear Stephen Lett call babies little enemies of God. You hear all these things. Jeffrey Jackson says at the Australian Royal Commission that it would be presumptuous for them to claim that they were God's only mouthpiece on earth, when that is exactly what they teach you. See, you grow up hearing all these things, believing all these things, then you suddenly find out that all that other stuff is going on and it's a lie. And that leads to natural bitterness, anger, feeling hurt, feeling resentful because of these bad experiences. And if you're disfellowshipped and shunned for it, or if you just choose to leave and you're shunned for it, naturally you're going to resent that kind of behavior. So that happens. It's hard to deal with, but it's also understandable. So even if people who leave and turn around and speak against the Watchtower were bitter, that's perfectly reasonable and understandable emotional response to how they were treated. However, that brings us into the transition period, because when you first leave, you run into a lot of challenges in addition to feeling bitter and resentful. You have the emotional response of feeling isolated. Remember, you don't have friends or social network outside of the religion if you were a true believer. You have to deal with the loss of everyone that you knew, with your cherished beliefs. You believed in a paradise earth. You believed in all these things that were going to happen. Now you're probably questioning those things. And you have to navigate that sense of bitterness that you feel, because it hurts. And yet somehow you have to get through the day-to-day while grappling with everything that you believe, your whole world crumbling down around you. But you still have to eat, you still have to work, you still have to have somewhere to live. Hopefully you still do, and you weren't too dependent on the people in the organization, on your family or your friends. Hopefully you didn't get fired by your witness employer if you had one, which that's happened. It's illegal in most countries, but it's happened. I know people. Then you've got the social challenges. You have to figure out how to build a new support system and how to face all the misconceptions you're going to run into. I mean, think about it. If you grow up as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, you didn't grow up in the normal real world at all. And you don't know how to make friends outside. That was one of the most difficult things for Beth and I. We didn't know how to make real friends with normal people. In the world of Jehovah's Witnesses, you're thrown into a group of people, the congregation, and you're just supposed to be their friends. So it's like Beth put it, all the kids are just tossed into the sandbox together and you're supposed to get along and be pals. You're never really taught how to go out and make friends under normal social settings, at work, at social events. Like, you don't know how to do that with your neighbors. Maybe Beth and I's first people that we consider friends after leaving were a couple that lived next to us. They were next door neighbors when we lived in Charlotte, and they became dear friends of ours. They were the ones that helped us to get into the world of having friends who were normal people that had never been witnesses. Because up to that time, our only friends were other ex-JWs. There's nothing wrong with having other ex-JWs as friends. I'm sure most of you guys know who Jimmy Bell is. He and I are very close friends, have been for years. He's an ex-JW, of course. Nothing wrong with that, but you also need to know how to build a normal worldview, a normal social network outside. And that can be very distressing when you've never had to do that before. And when the culture you came out of, the world of the witnesses, is so different from the one you've gone into. You've never celebrated a birthday. You've never celebrated Christmas. You don't know what an office party's like, because you always stay away from them because you're not supposed to go to things like that. You didn't go to prom. You don't know how to date if you're single. Like, it's much more difficult because of the way you were raised and how little you understand about the culture of the world outside of what you saw on TV, which naturally is just sitcom in its approach. It's not how the real world works. It's either overly dramatic or just overly hilarious. It's not how the real world works. So you're just a fish out of water at first. It takes time to navigate that. And on top of having to do all that, you are understandably angry, hurt, and resentful about your past and the way you were treated. Yeah, you're bitter, at least for a while. That's a normal human response. So don't ever let anyone give you any crap for, oh, you're just bitter. Of course you are. Of course you are. Naturally you would be, given the way you were treated and the lies you were told. Naturally you would be bitter for a while. But let's keep going. Now, the second part of the transition period is coming up with a strategy to cope with that transition. All transitions are hard. They all are. Even smaller ones, like changing where you live, or your job, or graduating from high school and having to go to college, or out of college and going into the world. Transition is tough, generally speaking, If you break up with someone, a transition period's always tough, but take that and multiply it by a factor of 100 when your entire worldview gets obliterated when you wake up from the falsehoods of the religion. And that can be tough to deal with. So how do you cope with that kind of major transition? Well, you could seek therapy or counseling. As it turned out, my divorce with my ex, who is still a witness, was very difficult. I did not want it to be difficult. I tried to make it as, I tried to limit how painful it was. I tried to be agreeable. She was not. So it was a constant battle. And at one point, because of her behavior, the judge mandated that we both go to therapy. And I know why the judge did it. This is just my opinion, but it seemed very obvious to me based on the judge's response to my ex and the things that she would say in court. The judge wanted her to go, but didn't want to look unfair, and so sent us both. I'm like, well, if I have to do this thing, whatever, I'll go ahead and do it. And I'm really glad that I did. I'm really glad that I went to see a therapist, because really all a therapist is a neutral, educated third party listening to what you have to say, not judging what you say, asking you questions, and helping you to think. At least that's what my therapist did. And she was great. And I went for a few months, and in talking through all the stuff that I was dealing with from having left the religion, I found that to be amazingly helpful. So don't be afraid to go get therapy. In the world of Watchtower, getting therapy is looked down on, though they don't say that so much anymore. But when I was growing up, oh, that's worldly wisdom. You should just pray more, go out and service more. Why? Jehovah should be helping you through this. And you don't need a worldly doctor to help you. But you're out now, so it's okay. Go talk to a therapist. Get some counseling and support. Nothing else, you have a neutral third party to listen to what you have to say. And there are therapists who specialize in high control groups, religious trauma. If you have one in your area, highly recommend it. Also, you can find community support outside the religion. When you first leave, it really helps to find a community of other former witnesses to talk to, because the reality is no one else is going to fully understand what you went through in the same way as another person who is raised in the religion and also exited. And at first, you absolutely need that. In time, you need to expand that group to normal people who were never witnesses, because you can get trauma bonded with other ex-JWs, and those friendships can turn into just hate sessions on the Watchtower and the governing body. And while it's not wrong for you to express your bitterness and unhappiness, you also need other people who can help get you away from that, and you can start learning how to live in the real world normally and listen to the perspectives of other people who live in the real world normally to help you guide yourself into it, because now you're in it too. Now you're out living like the rest of the world lives in a more normal environment, not a perfect one, didn't say that. And you need to learn to navigate it. And having wise, seasoned people as friends who know how to do that and who are empathetic to what you've dealt with, that's a good thing too. So have XJW friends. Locate not just online groups, in-person XJW friends. If you can't find any, start a local meetup. That's what Beth and I did. That's how I met Jimmy. Started a meetup on meetup.com here in Winston-Salem. A bunch of people started showing up after just a couple of weeks. Jimmy was one of them, and he's been my friend for years now. It can absolutely work. So do it. Online communities are fine at first. The XJW Reddit community is great at first. And I'm not saying you shouldn't stay connected to that for a long time, but don't let that be your only source. You need face-to-face. You need other people, people you can go do things with, people you can make close personal friends, not just Facebook friends where you click a little box and, hey, we're friends. No, you're not. You don't know those people. You need real friends. That's what's going to help you through this. And you need to engage in self-care and personal development activities, whatever that means for you. For me, it was long walks. I would walk for miles and miles and miles every week and just think through all the things that I had been through. I would deprogram myself, scrape out the cobwebs. So I'd already woken up, but I had to get rid of the cobwebs that were still in the corners of my mind. I had to work through my reactions to things that I would still react to like a witness. Little by little, all that gets scraped away as you take care of yourself. You allow room for your feelings. You don't judge your bitterness and your anger and your hurt. And slowly those feelings start to lessen over time. At least they did for me, until they disappeared completely. I'm no longer angry. I'm no longer hurt. In fact, I'm going to get to it in a minute. I'm so happy. I am so happy to be out. And I'll put it this way. Had the congregation, the elders, not done terrible injustices to me and Beth, I never would have left. So let me say right now to you brothers, thank you. Thank you for being the type of terrible people you were. Thank you. Because if you weren't those people, I would still be stuck in that terrible religion. And I'm so much happier now. So if one of you guys are seeing it and you know who you are, that means you're out too. And no hard feelings. I'm so happy I'm out and you woke me up. So thank you. All right. Now, what are my reasons for happiness outside of the religion? They are numerous. Let's go through them. First of all, personal freedom. I have freedom of belief and thought. When I left the religion, I started to explore a bunch of other religions. I didn't immediately leave Christianity, and I've never left Jesus, just churches. I started going and visiting a bunch of other churches. I visited synagogues, I visited a Buddhist temple. I went to a lot of different spiritual outlets and places, read a lot of different books on a lot of different religious subjects to just explore because I could. And I'd always been interested in other religions. When we had that book come out as a witness, Mankind's Search for God, that summarized inaccurately a whole bunch of other religions, I was fascinated by that book, fascinated by it, because I've always been interested in other religions. Even as a little kid, in the religion, I would read books on Greek mythology at school in the school library, and I knew I wasn't supposed to do that. I knew that they would look down on it, which is why I would never check the books out. I would only read them at school, because I've always been fascinated by other people's religious beliefs. And now I had the freedom to go do what I want, to visit where I wanted, to learn where I wanted, to interact with the people I wanted. Nobody was dictating that to me anymore. I have freedom. I had the ability to make personal choices without religious constraints. Didn't have to feel bad about everything I did because it was going against Watchtower's ridiculous interpretation of the Bible. Nobody was telling me how to dress, whether or not I could have a beard, whether or not I could wear pants, whether or not I had to have a suit or a tie, who my friends could be, where I had to go to church, what kind of jobs I could keep. None of that. Daddy was gone. I moved out of the house and grew up and started taking care of myself. So that personal freedom is tremendous. It is wonderful and a huge cause for joy and happiness and fulfillment in my life now that I could not have had while one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And reflecting on that, again, further reduces the bitterness. Now, you're ever going to look back at the people who treated you that way and smile about how wonderful they were? No, you're always going to look at them in a way, at least, maybe not with anger and hurt, but bare minimum with pity. Or with, you just shake your head at the way they behave. However you process that is perfectly okay, and never let anyone tell you different. The important thing is, don't let it stop you from moving forward. My feelings of anger, hurt, and injustice are one of the reasons why I started the channel when I did years ago. And I got hundreds of people, at least, because hundreds of people told me, I got at least hundreds of people out of the religion. Help them to wake up, help them on their journey, at least hundreds, probably thousands. And so me redirecting the anger, hurt, and bitterness to a positive cause of helping other people out, that was a good thing. And it was also part of my healing process to be able to do that. So as long as those feelings don't stop you from moving forward, It's okay, and don't ever let anyone tell you different. You're going to process it in your own time. You have to grieve, you have to hurt, and it's not wrong to do that. Just don't let it stop you from moving forward. Don't blame the Watchtower for your inability to ever succeed. You have the rest of your life ahead of you. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be simple. It's going to take work, but you can do it. Now, that would be a negative form of bitterness. If you let that bitterness stop you from going forward because you blame them for everything else that's going to go wrong in your life. You're out now. You can do it. There are steps you can take. Like I always tell Beth, it's not your fault, but it is your problem, and you have to deal with it, and you can. Another reason I'm super happy about being out: broader perspectives, exposure to diverse beliefs and cultures. Now, all of my friends don't have to be Jehovah's Witnesses. I have friends of all manner of religion and non-religious, atheists, agnostics, delightfully in between, Christians, Buddhists, doesn't matter. Some people who are involved in other Eastern religions, transcendental meditation, that kind of thing. I learn from other people's experiences, different cultures, different belief systems. I don't have to agree with everything, but I'm not closed-minded, and I'll listen and learn and see if there's something from them that I can borrow. My belief system is a collection of all the things that I've learned since being out that I personally align with and agree with. Couldn't do that as a witness. Very happy to be able to do it now. Also, the opportunity to form relationships based on personal values rather than religious mandates. So if I see somebody and I think that's a cool person, I like that person, and I talk to that person and we hit it off and we become friends, I don't even care. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care. There's no mandates in the back of my head telling me, oh, well, they don't believe this, they can't be trusted. Oh, well, they don't go to our church, they can't be trusted. Oh, well, they're not in this religion, they can't be trusted. I don't have those anymore. I have my personal values from which I determine whether or not a person might be a good fit for a friendship or some other form of relationship. Self-discovery and growth, that's another big one. The ability to explore personal interests and passions without guilt or fear. How many things could we not do as witnesses that you know you wanted to do? Let me tell you one for me. I always liked Christmas songs. I know some of you are going to disagree with me, but I always liked Christmas music and the lights, the Christmas lights. Always liked that. Always had to pretend like I didn't. Always loved fireworks on the 4th of July. Had to pretend like I didn't. Could always feel a spiritual presence when I would go out on hikes in the woods. Always had to pretend like I didn't, because, they didn't believe in spirits. Only Jehovah. Everything else is demonic. I could accept things. I could explore things, my passions, my interests, my hobbies, and not feel bad about it. I could write, because I write poetry and some short stories, I could write things about how I was feeling when those feelings were totally unacceptable in the Watchtower. So I either had to not write it or I had to hide it. But now I could just freely say what I think and not feel trapped in the mind that is forced upon me by the Watchtower and its mandates. Rather, I can just do what I want to do and enjoy what I want to enjoy and express it the way I feel and not the way I think I'm supposed to feel. Huge joy and reason for happiness now that I'm out. Developing a personal moral and ethical framework, absolutely a big reason for me to find happiness outside. I get to decide what I think is right and wrong. I get to determine my ethics and values and where the lines are and when they get crossed and where my boundaries need to be. No one else is going to tell me that my lines have to be theirs, my boundaries have to be theirs, my ethics have to be theirs because they claim some just ridiculous interpretation of the Bible and I must live by it. No more. Now I set all that up on my own. Community and belonging, another massive reason for happiness once you're out. Building genuine relationships based on mutual respect and understanding. People who are not going to shun you just because you disagree with them on some doctrinal issue. People who are not going to shun you because they're afraid that if they don't, someone else is going to shun them. People who aren't afraid to be your friend. it's not an informant system anymore. Like in the world of witnesses, it's an informant system. If you speak your mind on something that goes against what the governing body says, they're going to report you to the elders. Elders are going to talk to you. If you don't repent and recant, you're kicked out as an apostate and shunned. This fear lives in your mind and all your friendships in the world of Watchtower. They're not really your friends, not at all. Beth and I did a video on that. You don't have that problem outside. Now, do sometimes friendships end? Yeah, sure they do. Are some people friends for a season and it only lasts a while? Yeah, sure. Do you sometimes have disagreements, or a person goes a certain way that you can't, support because you do have boundaries that you set yourself instead of being told what they should be? Yeah, sure that happens. But the genuineness of the friendship, the decision whether to remain or not to remain, is yours and yours alone, and has no longer been put off to a third party who is in control of your conscience and your mind. So those friendships are real and lasting and genuine in a way that they were not in the religion. Engaging in community service and activism without religious motivation. Huge reason. I realized that I was a good person not because I was in fear of not being one, because if I didn't do certain things that Watchtower said was good, I was going to be destroyed by God in Armageddon. I was a good person because I wanted to do good things because I'm a good person. I volunteered at a food bank for a long time here in town. I've engaged in a bunch of volunteer work in Charlotte where I helped repair people's houses and things like that, where I've volunteered for Habitat for Humanity and Love Incorporated and just all kinds of things. Not because I thought God was going to be mad at me if I didn't do things like that, but just because I wanted to do it. So I found that my inner goodness was genuine, and it was no longer suppressed by the Watchtower and its mandates that I treat people in a way that did not reflect human decency or goodness at all. So, big reason to be happy. Health and well-being, another massive one. The psychological benefits of living authentically cannot be overstated. Waking up every morning as the person you want to be, with friends who accept you as that person, with a spouse, in my case Beth, who accepts you and loves you as that person, not hiding your thoughts, not hiding your feelings, not hiding who you are from everyone. The freedom and peace that brings is just beyond accounting. There's no value you could put on that. There's no price you could put on that. And you'll never have that while you're in the religion, but you can have that after you leave. Does it come immediately? No. You do have to work through bitterness. You do have to work through the psychology. You do have to work through the fear of leaving this group, the rejection, the pain, the heartache, and how to navigate in a new world. It's not easy. You're like a fish out of water. You're like a baby taking its first steps. But eventually that baby gets strong and is running through the playground on those little legs. And that's going to be you. So if you're not there yet, just keep going, because it's coming. Reduced anxiety related to religious expectations and the apocalypse. When I was a kid, I had nightmares about Armageddon. And I've had so many people in the comments over the years tell me that they had the same kinds of nightmares. Even though I didn't even mention the nightmare, they would talk about their nightmares. One in the video I dropped yesterday, nightmares. It's the top comment as of right now. Nightmares of Armageddon as a child. That fear and anxiety of those religious expectations is gone. I don't worry about those things anymore. That brings a kind of genuine peace you will never know in the religion. And it's a peace that cost you your friends, your family, friends in the religion, your family. It cost you dearly. But you know what? Sometimes you spend a lot of money to buy a car that is your dream car and you love it, and every time you get in it and press that button and it starts up, it makes you feel wonderful. Sometimes things are worth the cost. Sometimes you save up all your money to take that dream vacation, and it was everything you hoped it would be, and you never look back on that with any kind of regret. Some things are worth the cost. If you had to give up your fake friends and your family that claims to love you but loves a bunch of old men at the Watchtower organization more, but because of that cost, you have true peace, freedom of mind, real friends, and a a value system that is uniquely your own and nobody can question, worth it. I promise you, it's worth it. Personal reflections on happiness and a lack of bitterness. Let's get into this. Okay, so I've had so many positive experiences since leaving the religion. Friends that I've made, ex-JW friends, normal friends, from every walk of life. I'm so much more seasoned. The word worldly now means what it's supposed to mean. It means wise and experienced and cultured. And I am those things now because I've left. And I'm always growing. I'm always trying to do better. But I'm no longer stuck in this tiny little nonsensical religious shell that I was put in as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. But I was very bitter at first, naturally. And you're not wrong if you still feel that way. It just means you have work left to do. And it's not wrong if you always look back at the people who robbed you of your family with a feeling of negativity, maybe some anger. I'm not going to be the one to tell you that you should never feel that way, because I don't think that's correct. What I think is that if you feel anger and hurt and resentfulness, which is perfectly normal, just don't let that stuff stop you from moving forward. Pour that energy into something that helps you move forward. If it makes you an activist, and don't come off sounding bitter when you talk to people. You don't want to sound like that, but put that energy into helping other people get out. Or put that energy into something for yourself. Just redirect it so that it helps propel you forward rather than knocking you back. That's all I would ask. I'm not going to tell you not to be bitter because I don't think it's wrong. Emotions are complex, for sure. And it was difficult. But my level of happiness and peace now, wouldn't trade it. Again, thank you, elders, for being being the bastards you were, because I'm so happy now. I have a wonderful life now. Beth and I are free, and every year that we're free, we just look at each other and we tell each other all the time, I'm so glad to be free with you. It's such a feeling of peace and joy that you will never have in the religion. And you will get there if you're not there yet. Just don't stop. Keep working on it. If you need therapy, get therapy. If you need support, find support. So yeah, I totally understand why some people would be bitter. Even though the Watchtower apologists are saying that, again, just because they can't defend what we're telling them as the truth about the Watchtower, so they just have to come up with something, oh, you're just bitter. Yeah, I was super bitter at first, and I had every right to be. I'm not now. I'm over it now. But yeah, hell yeah, I was bitter. If I wasn't, I would have been emotionally damaged even worse than I was if I was somehow blaming myself for not looking back at them with a proper amount of what I refer to as righteous indignation. Yeah, there would have been something worse wrong with me. So yeah, I was bitter. But now I'm better. Now I'm at peace. Now I'm happy. There's so many reasons for being happy. Let me just go through them real quick. I am so happy to be out of that religion because I have personal freedom, broader perspectives. I've engaged in self-discovery and growth. I have community and belonging. I have health and well-being. I have all the things that I never would have had if I had stayed in that religion. So I'm so happy to be out. So happy. You can do it too. If you're not there yet, just keep working. You'll work through that bitterness. Redirect it. Put that energy into something positive. Volunteer somewhere. Find some friends. Go to a meetup. It doesn't even have to be XJW. What are your interests? Go find other groups of people who have that interest. And you'll see how quickly you're able to process through the bitterness and anger when you start finding, you know what? I'm out and I lost my entire social network, but I've replaced it with something so vastly superior. It's like you grew up in a house. It was the only house you ever knew. And it was rickety and it wasn't well built and it was cold in the winter and hot in the summer. And it was just ramshackle and falling apart. But it's all you ever knew was your childhood home. And it burned down while you were gone. And at first, of course, you're going to be angry and upset and frustrated. It's the only house you ever knew. But then you get an insurance check and you build a house that is so much better, with a working heat and air conditioning, where the roof doesn't leak, where you have a basement with plenty of room, where all the appliances are new and lots of sunlight rather than tiny windows where it's dark and dank. You're going to build a better house. It takes time to build that house. But you burned down the first one, and it was right for you to do so. And you're going to build the better one back. It takes time, but it'll be so much better for you on the other side. Well, that's what I think, but I would love to know what you think. So be sure to click like. Don't forget to subscribe to my videos so you can get more of them. And I hope you enjoyed the nature and the outside and the bird song. I certainly love where we live. It is beautiful. It's a small little house and a small little yard, but I wouldn't trade it. Y'all take care. Talk soon.